All right. So this is 5 live free code school. It'll be 1 live free code school tonight. We had some scheduling difficulties this week. And so for right now, at least, it's just me and Alexandra. We'll get going. Obviously, this will be, live. It'll be recorded on Twitch and people can watch it after the fact. And we might have a couple people trickle in. But let's pick up where we were 3 days ago. We've been spending several sessions here building really a complete program written in basic JavaScript that will do create, read, update, and delete on products. And where we left off was that we were able to successfully create a product if we hard code the data. I'm going to share my screen, then we'll switch over to you, Alexander, in a minute. But if we look at this project we're building, we have in our operations folder a create.js, and this is where we have a create product function. Because we've tagged it as an export, we can import it in other places, and we are importing it in the primary file in our application, app.js. You can see that import occur right here. Import the create product function from the create.js folder or file. And here's our hard-coded product. And we successfully were able to use that JavaScript object and throw it in to where we call create product. And that was down here in our get, where we have the user input an operation. And we have our switch statement with all of its various cases. And on C for create, we were passing in our fake product. But now the thing I left people off with as a challenge is let's actually just prompt the user for all of the parameters for this new product that they're going to create. Use it to create a JavaScript object that's dynamic, i.e. it changes based on the user input, and use that information to create a product. Because that's kind of where we left off, just to put the context on everything. So just before class was talking to Alexandra, and it looks like she's got a working chunk of code to do this. So I'm going to stop sharing and we'll take a look at what you have. All right, Alexandra?
Let me just. You see it?
Yeah, excellent. So go ahead and lead us through what you've got here and why each part of the code is there.
Okay, so some of these I wrapped in number because I noticed it was, when I was creating the product, it was becoming a string. So I wanted to convert that to number. And then so I have the result.price because that will get the, like, from the result, it'll get the price option.
Excellent. So when we prompt the user one after the other for price, SKU, name, quantity, etc., then all of those are in the result object that's passed into the function body, beginning with the curly bracket at the end of line 57 and ending with the curly bracket on, looks like 72.
And then yeah. I didn't do the, like when you mentioned the quotes thing, like if someone added quotes, I tested it with quotes and it seemed to actually just like automatically add the escape characters to it. So you didn't have to do anything for it.
Excellent. And that, by the way, that's a really nice built-in thing that we get from the prompt library. I haven't used it before. I wasn't sure whether it would handle that well or not.
Yeah.
So if we were to dive way down deep inside the prompt library, we'd probably be able to see where it actually scanned each input, checked for the presence of double quotes, and escaped them. So that's really well done. That's excellent. Okay, good. So we've got our price, our SKU, our name. Name doesn't require casting to a string because you want it to be a string. And by the way, that's the word casting.
Casting.
Or converting. Have you heard that term?
Yeah, now that you said it, I recognize it.
Yeah. Now, there's a lot of really nerdy computer science theory underneath whether you're casting or you're converting, and that's a bit beyond the scope of what we're doing right now. It's enough to know that without, like on line 60, without that number, and then inside you take the price property of the result object, without that number part, then it's going to interpret that as a string. So price, if you did 500, would be a string of 500. Here comes Jonas. Let's give him a minute to arrive. Excellent. Jonas, how are you? You're on mute. Might take a minute for his audio. Oh, good. Hi, Jonas.
Hi.
Hi. Okay, good. All right. So where we're at right now is, we left off with that challenge at the end of last class to try to take user input online on, this is Alexandra's screen you're looking at on line 57, and use it to create an object on line 58 that we can then use to create an actual product. So she was leading us through her code. And the first thing I want to do, just because you weren't here for it, when you look at her code from lines 60 through 65, are there any questions about her code that you have?
Actually, I don't. It's a key value pairs.
Yes, price is a key, and then the value is whatever's after the colon. Exactly.
Yeah. I just the result is an object.
Say it again.
I think result is an object.
Yes,
Price is a
exactly. Yeah,
property.
product becomes there's an object called product. Is that what you're saying?
Product. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what we're declaring on line 58. The let product is the declaring the variable, and everything after the equal sign is assigning its value. So it gets assigned a value of an object inside the curly brackets.
Yes. So we are changing it since the user input is in strings. We are changing it into its data type.
Yeah, you're talking about like how it says number on line 60?
Yeah. The data type, we are changing it since the user input is in strings.
Yes,
We'll
exactly.
have
The
to change
input,
them
yeah, the
into
input
number.
comes in as string, so we're changing it to a number for those things that are numbers, like price, SKU, quantity, and ID. That's exactly right. What Alexandra was telling me is that when she was building this out, if she didn't convert it to a number, it stored it as a string with quotes around it. Is that correct, Alexandra?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Excellent. And if we want, once we see that's working, we can break that part of it on one of these and see the result. Okay, good. So go ahead and show us this working, would you, Alexandra? All right, so C for create. All right. So $300. There's our SKU 333. Name is widget. We have 500 of them in stock. It's a purple widget. All right, so it spits back what we got. Now let's go ahead and look at db.text and see, did it store it in there? There it is, price 300, there's the SKU, excellent. All right. So run it again and give me an A for listing all. Let's make sure it lists as well. And there it is. Okay, good. So Jonas, did you get a chance to get yours up and running?
I didn't work on it, so I have to write the code now.
It's totally fine. Be sure to do that before next week's class. Okay, get that working. Here's what I want to do next, and this is definitely something that you'll be able to help with, Jonas, in terms of the thought process involved. Alexandra, when you ran this and you got to the point where it asked for an ID, you put 6, right?
Yeah.
And I'm assuming that's because you knew that we'd already used 1 through 5, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. So we want to make sure that we don't ever have 2 products in our persistent data storage, the db.text file in this case. We want to make sure we don't ever have 2 products with the same ID. Can anybody think of problems that might arise if we had 2 products with the same ID number?
It will return the wrong one.
Good. If we were going to search by ID, it wouldn't know which one to return. What else? What if we went to delete by ID?
It would like delete too many.
It might only delete one of them, and then there's another one left over. And is it the one we want? And we also haven't implemented the edit function. That same problem. How do we uniquely identify the actual object in our persistent data storage? Does that make sense to you, Jonas?
Sorry.
Does that make sense to you? The idea of each object, in this case, a product, having a unique ID number, like we can't use the same ID for multiple products?
Yes, when we designed the database schema, it would create conflicts when we do the CRUD application, the CRUD operations.
Yeah.
For instance, when we delete, create, retrieve, and write data.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
In the database schema, we are obliged to use it as a primary key.
Good. Now that's way down the line. Well, not way down the line. That has to kind of do with our next big subject, which will be relational databases. And that's kind of what I was referring to earlier. Alexander and I were talking a little bit right before we started class. Jonas, it's awesome that you actually already have some knowledge in that area. I think this next piece might actually really help both you and anybody else watching this. Jonas is exactly right that if we were working with a proper database, there would be restrictions and controls and features behind the scenes that could help make sure that we never have a duplicate ID, a duplicate unique identifier. But that isn't the situation we have here right now. We are rolling our own. We're making our own little persistent data storage, db.txt. And yes, it's quote unquote only a text file, but that doesn't mean if we're going to treat it as if it is the permanent storage, the source of truth about our product information, it doesn't mean we don't need to give it the same sort of protections. And so the thing I want to talk through right now and then implement is how could we, inside our program, determine the next available unique ID and then assign the ID inside the program instead of by asking the user? What are some thoughts you guys have on how we might go about doing that? Never mind the exact code, but just the concept. How could we have our computer program assign the ID instead of asking the user on the command line?
Would you use like a for loop or something?
That's one approach. Tell me a bit about what you mean.
Because I was thinking like each time you create a new product, you can like loop through all the existing products and then add an ID at the end after that or something along those lines.
Absolutely. That's completely a valid way to do it. Totally. So it's probably the way we're going to do it. There's another interesting thing we could think with. What if we had another data file beyond the db.txt, and all it was a little text file, and all it stored was what's the next available ID to use? And we update it every time. And that way we don't have to loop through every project or every product. Mm-hmm. Jonas, did you get that?
Yes, I think we can solve that problem by applying a method where the ID is incremented after every request of a new entry.
Yeah, after every create entry, right? Every time we create a new product, then we increment the ID. Is that what you're talking about?
Yes.
Yeah, Absolutely. So there's two approaches here. Now, do me a favor if you would, and let's go to the create.js, Alexandra. So we have this create product, and it sounds like the first approach that you're talking about is like right as the first thing inside this function, first loop through all the existing products and find the highest ID number, and then use an ID that's one number higher than that. Is that the kind of concept you were talking about?
Yeah.
Good. Let's code that out. Let's actually do it. So right after, right after the curly bracket.
So down here, right?
Actually, I'm going to keep that comment tied to line 7 because it's all about appending. Yeah, put it in here. You can put a comment that says, find next available ID.
And
now,
then just
I'm going to ask Jonas, how would you write the loop here?
By reading the database file from read.js.
Yep. So we have to read the database file in. Where else in the code do we already have an example of how to do that? You can look at your own code, Jonas, because it's going to be very similar to what she has, with the exception of this create stuff. Look through the code and find, is there already a file that we have an example of grabbing our product information and using it?
I think we have in the import db.js.
Now you're mostly right. Go to import db.js if you would, Alexandra. This is the actual function that will do exactly what you're talking about, Jonas. You're totally right in that regard. The function on line 4 called read database. This is what you're referring to, right?
Yes.
Good. Now, here's the thing is, we mark that function, read database, for export at the beginning of line 4. What I'm asking you to do is look through your code and find where are some places that we import that we make use of it. If you look at the structure of our folders and files, what you're looking at in this import DB, it's in the data folder, correct?
Yes. I guess we are importing the function read database.
Right. Where are we importing it? What's another file in our project where we import that already?
Okay. In delete.js.
Perfect. Alexander, go to delete.js. Yeah, right there on line 1. You're spot on. Import read database. And then where in this file that do we actually call that function?
In line number 4.
You rock. High five through the computer. Good job. Good. So that's the structure we need to replicate in our create. So can you go ahead and replicate that structure in create for us, Alexandra?
Would we just be replicating just line 4 then?
We need to import it first, which is line 1.
So could I just take?
Yeah, grab the whole shebang. That's what I'd do. I mean, you've already got import fs. There you go. So we're importing it on line 2. And then on line 4, we're using it So now on line 4, we have the current contents of the database, which is what we want, because on line 9 now, we want to scan through all of those and find what's the highest number that we are using. So let's go back. That was really, really well done, Jonas. Let's go back to the logic here on line 9. Tell me what we should do here. Never mind about the exact right syntax. How do you think we should find the highest ID that's being used? Conceptually, what would you do? Actually, yeah, this is an important question. So hear me out on this, okay? So Jonas and Alexandra, but I want Jonas to try to answer this first.
Okay.
Let's say that we weren't electronic. Let's say that instead we had a big stack of index cards. And on each index card was the information about one product. And your job, a human being, no computers, your job is to find out what is the highest number used in that stack of cards for an ID. How would you do it in the real world?
Here is how I would see this problem. I would approach this problem. I guess in my data structures class, we learned two types of data structures, the queue and the stack. So in this case, if we generically began from counting, we began counting from 0. Just the one at the top of the stack would be the highest ID, and to find its value, we just need to make an APOP operation.
You know, you're probably onto something. Here's the thing I want you to do. And there's a specific reason that I'm going to ask you to go through this exercise. For a moment, I want you to forget what you know from your computer science education. For a very good reason. It's valuable data, okay? But just hear me out on something. I want you to literally pretend that the situation I described is real. You have in your hand, you're sitting there right at your desk right now, and you have a stack of cards. Again, each card has the information about one product. It's got its ID, its SKU, its name, its description, all those things that we're tracking about a product. And you've been told by your boss, please go through this stack of cards and tell me what is the highest number that we are using as an ID. Never mind data structures or computers. If you have those cards in your hand, how are you going to do this?
I would start from the top. Then intuitively, I would just go to the other end and check where if the IDs ordered sequentially. I would check those indices. I would identify if it was a descending or an ascending order, because IDs don't have necessarily to start from counting from 0.
Okay.
Then it would be either of them. It's either the first one or
It's either
the
ascending
top.
or descending.
Yeah,
Okay.
it would be one from both ends.
Good. I'm going to make your life hell. You ready?
Yes.
Your manager walks over and he's clumsy and he slips and all the cards fall onto the desk and he grabs them all together and shoves them in a stack. They're now random. How are you going to figure out what's the highest number that's been used for an ID?
So in this case, we are going to use comparison operators.
I don't care about comparison operators. You're not a computer. You're a human being. You have a stack of cards in your hand. You're on the right track. You're doing great. Okay. You have cards in your hand. Tell me, in the physical universe, what would you do?
I would just to go through every card.
Good. Let's go one card at a time. You're looking at the top card. What do you do?
Yeah. I would do just if first I look at the first card.
Good.
If the second card is
No.
ID number is greater,
Stop.
I would throw the first one.
Stop. You're looking at the first card. What do you do?
I would record its ID number.
Good. You write down or record its ID number. Perfect.
Yeah.
So let's say it's 6. You have that written down on a piece of paper next to you, right?
Yeah. Yeah. 6.
Good. Now what do you do?
Then I would look the second card.
Good. And what do you do?
If the second card's number is greater, I would throw the first one. I would hold the second card.
Good. So the second one says 10. What do you do?
6. The first one was 6.
Yep.
The second one is 10. I would throw 6. Since it's a smaller number.
Good. So what do you do on your piece of paper? The piece of paper out to the side that said 6. What do you do?
I would cancel that.
Yeah, cross out the 6 and then what?
And then write 10.
Good. All right. You go through all of the cards.
Yeah.
And the highest number you observed is 100.
Yeah.
Now you have that on the piece of paper and now you know. And you know this whether they were sorted ascending or they were sorted descending or they were random.
Yes.
Make sense?
Yeah.
Good job. That's what we need to build. We need to build an algorithm in a computer that does what you just did with the cards in your hand. Make sense? Okay, so the first thing is to make the little piece of paper off to the side. That piece of paper stores the highest number. So, Alexandra, make a variable called highest and make it equal to 0. That's what you have on the piece of paper. Good, excellent. Now make a loop that goes through every single product and does what Jonas talked about. Each time it looks at a product, it checks to see whether the ID of that product is higher than what we have on the piece of paper. If you need any help doing this, let me know.
So we're checking to see, like we're looping through it and then we're checking to see if the next one that we see is higher than the last one.
Yep, if the current ID we're looking at happens to be higher than what we already have as the highest.
Okay. So I'm not too sure how to start that.
Sure. This is just a conditional. It's just a either or.
It's like a if statement.
That's exactly what it is.
So we'd be checking the Would it just be I in comparison to highest?
I is just an iterator that increases by 1 every single time. I isn't necessarily the ID of the current product.
Oh, okay, so it'd be like products, products I, and then ID, right?
Yeah.
Sure.
And this is where what Jonas was talking about comes in. This is the comparison kind of thing. You check equality.
So checking.
Or
it's
sorry, wrong, not equality. You check the comparison of greater than, right, Jonas?
Yes, with
Yeah.
the variable highest.
Yep. So greater than
Alright.
highest, because highest represents in our real world drill that Jonas and I were doing what's written down on the piece of paper.
right.
So let's say it is. Let's say it's greater than 0. Now what do we do? Give me some curly brackets, and what should we do?
So if it's would be, oh, sorry, Jonas, go ahead.
No.
You
Go
sure?
ahead, Alexandra.
Okay, thank you. Would we reassign the current ID we have to highest?
Yeah.
Okay. So that'd be like, well,
Nope.
no?
You said, will we assign the current ID we have to highest?
Right.
The assignment operator goes after the thing you're assigning a value to. Just don't erase this, and look what you just did. You just made the ID
Oh,
equal
right.
to 0.
Right. Okay. I see. Should I go ahead and rewrite it now then?
Yep, go for it. Perfect. Awesome. That is actually the extent of all you have to do. You'll go through every single product, and no matter what order they're in. And, by the way, Jonas was thinking about some really smart things from a computer science point of view. He's like, well, if they're sorted ascending, that's really helpful because I know the count of them. I could just do one past the count or whatever. If they're sorted descending, well, I find out in the very first one what the highest number is, But we can't, unless we've exerted tight control over the structure of the data we have, we can't be certain. And with what we're using, with a text file, we've already seen there's no guarantee they're going to lay down in an order that we like. So this algorithm, even though it requires that we go through all of the products, is guaranteed to find the highest ID. Now, there's a much better solution. We'll explore that in a moment, but this will work. So now that you have that, what I want you to do is figure out how do we use it to use the next available number, the number 1 higher, when we create our product. What would you do? Like, let's say it came in at 6, because it will right now. We know the highest ID is going to be 6, right?
Yeah.
How could we encode, use the next available number, in this case 7, when we create our new product? Do you have any idea, Jonas?
I guess we do have to use iteration.
An iteration, tell me what you mean.
By incrementing it.
By 1, right?
By 1.
Good. Okay, so we've incremented it by 1. So now we have, for our real world example, now we have the value 7. What do you do with that value right here in the code? We've done a really cool thing. We've found out in our for loop what the highest ID number is. That's a valuable piece of data. As Jonas said, we can increment that by 1, and now we have the new value that we should use if we were to create a new product. Perfect. How do we use that number in our code when we create the new product? Here's the question that'll kind of open this up for you both. In this function that begins on line 7, where is the new product represented? Where's the information about our new product?
In the app.js folder file, I mean.
That's where it comes in, where we accept it from the user. When this create product function, I'll go really slow here because this stuff is super important, and it's up to me to make sure it comes across. Look at line 7. Line 7 is the function that we are calling from app.js. So Alexander, you're right in that regard. Show me in app.js, show us both where we're calling that. Good. So when we call create product, what is that thing in parentheses? Product, what is that?
That's our object.
Yes, it's an object with key value pairs, as Jonas was saying earlier, and the values are taken from what the user input. Good. So go back to line 68 there, and when we call create product, now we go down inside the create product function in create.js. So go to create.js. So in this function that we've now called, where is that new product information?
Would that be in our db.text?
Nope. The db.text contains information about currently existing products. When you look at line 7, the create project or product function, what is that thing in parentheses?
It's a parameter which accepts the product object.
That is our product object. That's what we want to store down inside the text file. That is the object which, when this program's running, that's the object that got passed in to the create product function. Any questions about that? It's okay if you do. Let's look at it live. Can you put a breakpoint on line 9, please? And now can you go to debug and run this debug via the console? There you go.
It should just start it, or?
Yep, go ahead and start it. And it should start with the debugger attached. And do create and just enter in some data like you have been before, including an ID. That's totally fine. Good. Now, on the left in the watch, I want you to add a watch on fake. Expand it. There it is. That's the object that got passed into this function when we called it. That's the object that was in app.js that we passed to this function, create product. So once we go through this for loop and we've identified the next available ID, which again should be 7, how can we use that so that what we save into the database has an ID of 7?
Do we want to change it where we're calling the function in app.js so that like when we're creating the fake object, we don't include the ID?
That's one part of it, Alexandra. You're absolutely right. Don't include the ID. Or rather, don't even ask the user for it.
Right.
Good. But now that we're inside this function, do me a favor, go ahead and put a breakpoint on 16 and just hit continue. I don't want to go through your for loop 6 times. I'd like you to roll over highest though and see what is highest equal to now. It should be 6.
Here. Oh, yes,
6. Good. So first of all, well done to both of you for designing that for loop. It worked. We now have in our running computer program a variable called highest that does in fact show the highest used ID. But here on line 16, where we paused, we got a breakpoint on 16, we're about to save our product called fake. We'll need to change the name of that, right? We're about to save our product called fake down as string information inside our db.txt file. But we're going to do so with 8 that Alexandra input from the command line. We want to use the next available integer, the one right above highest. We want to use 7, right? How do we do that?
I think first we add the new product to the new entry to the fake product. Then
in the text file?
No. For instance, before after the for loop.
After the for loop. Okay, good.
Yeah. We add the new entry to the fake product. Then
when you say we add the new entry, what do you mean by entry?
By entry, I mean the new ID number.
Good. Add the new ID number to the product object. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Jonas, you're 100% right. Go ahead and stop the program. And then right after the for loop that ends on line 14, give us a blank line. It's as simple as this. Write fake.id equals highest plus 1. That's it. Semicolon. That's all you do. Now let's go ahead and run it again.
In the debug or no?
Yep.
All right.
And do the same thing you did before where you create and give it an ID of 8. We're going to take away that part of it when we get this working. A truck.
You said 8?
Yeah.
All right.
Doesn't matter because we're going to change it.
Right.
Hit continue so we go past your for loop. Now, if we look at the fake object, it's on the left-hand side in the watch window, expand it. Oh, what did we do? That was weird. Why did it make the ID 9?
Would that be because the last one?
Oh,
was
because
8?
we did save one with 8 earlier,
Yeah.
didn't we? Go look at your db.txt.
Sorry, the zoom control is in my way.
Oh, I know. Isn't that fun?
Is there a way to move it? Oh, you can. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, there it is on line 7. We already had one that saved. So that was correct. We wanted a 9. Okay, good. Go back to your create. Good. So what we're about to do right now is our for loop correctly identified the highest number as 8. On line 15, we said, okay, add 1 to that and use it as the value for the ID of the product we're about to save. And if you hit F5 and save it, or hit continue, now look at your db.txt, and there it is with a 9. So go back, if you will, to create. And first of all, I want to acknowledge that what you guys just did was awesome. You've successfully built code that'll guarantee that we have a unique ID. That's excellent. Now, before we figure out a different way to do this and explain why we would even want to, let's clean up a couple of things. Let's change the name of on line 7 where we've declared the function. Let's stop calling it fake and like call it new product or something like that. Now, stop for a second. Notice how you're going to go through and change all the references where we use that. Hit Control Z and go back to where it says fake. And then right click on the word fake and go down to rename symbol halfway down. And now type new product and hit enter. And it changes all the references for you.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Does it do that in like all the files then?
Well, no, because this is the only place that that variable is used inside the scope of those curly brackets.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah. Good. Jonas, any questions on what we just did?
No.
Okay.
It worked.
Excellent. Go ahead.
It worked.
Okay, excellent. Now let's go back to app.js. And let's stop asking for ID.
So then just remove this, right?
That isn't it. That's not what we ask.
Oh, right. We asked right here.
Yeah. So first take that away. And then on ID, you don't need to set it in here. Now, this is an important thing. You literally just erase it and the comma above it. And this should work. Let's run it and see if it'll work. And just hit continue.
Yeah. And then continue again.
Yep. And let's look at our db.txt and see how we did. Good. Look at that. Let's just say you're getting like, well done. That's all I have to say. Well done. This is more and more like the way a real product, a real computer program would work. Okay. Now, part of the reason this works, go to app.js. And let's look on line 67, specifically at the product object that we're passing in as a parameter when we call create product. That product object does not have a key value pair for ID. It only has the key value pairs on line 60 through 64. Price, SKU, name, quantity, description. Now, when we pass that object in on line 67, now we're down inside the create product function. Go ahead and go to that function, the create product function.
So in create, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Line 15 is actually really interesting. The object called new product is the same thing that we passed in when we called the function. And it does not at first have an ID property. But suddenly on line 15, we're giving it one. We're inventing a whole new key value pair called ID. You see how that is?
Yeah.
Yes.
JavaScript lets you do that. Not all languages do. It's just the way the language was built. It lets you add on properties, key value pairs in your program. Some languages will enforce the structure of the object the way it was initially created, and you can't add on new properties. It's just something to know. So that's why this works. All right, now let's solve a different problem. Let's say we have 150,000 products in our company that we sell. That means that every time we run this create product to add a new one, our for loop is going to have to run through 150,000 products. That's going to start to slow our program down. So what if instead, go back to your file explorer on the left there of VS Code. What if instead we had another permanent record like db.txt, and what we stored there was the highest number that we've used so far as an ID. And that way, all we have to do when we need a new ID is check that one place, see what the number is, and add one number to it. Much faster, right?
Yeah.
So let's build that. First of all, let's just make the file. In the data, just make a text file. I would call it highest ID, the highest underscore ID dot text. And because we happen to know what it is right now, let's preload it with 9. We know, well, go to db.txt. Is it 9 or 10? Ooh, 10. Yeah. Ooh. So put 10 in there.
Can you just put like just 10 like that?
Yep.
Okay.
We could do it other ways. We might let's do a JavaScript object. Let's write it in JSON. What do you think the key value pair should be here? What's the key?
ID.
Good. I like it. So give me an open curly bracket and then space and then quote ID. No, sorry, double quotes. I apologize. And then colon and then 10 and a space. Now, you want to make sure that that's valid JSON. Copy it, go to Google and look up JSON validator and try it.
Okay, it looks like it is.
Good, awesome. All right. So what I want you to do, and in fact, I'm going to have each of you just work on this separately right now on your own machines. So Alexander, go ahead and stop sharing. I want you each to build code that will read that file and get the value and then use it in create.js when you need a new ID number. Now, Jonas, I know you're a bit behind,
Yes.
right? Okay, so here's a question, and I want an honest answer. If you were to take between now and next Monday when we have our class, or Tuesday morning for you, if you were going to take all that time and your whole homework, all it was is making the create product function work and then using this new methodology of a text file to store the highest used ID, Do you feel like you can get that done in the next 5 days?
Yes, I will do it.
Okay, then I want that to be your homework. That's all. And this part's really important. If you get stuck, reach out to me. Reach out to Alexandra. It's totally fine, okay? I want you to have a win on this and push it through. Any amount of stuck, you get a hold of me. Okay? Now, Alexandra, yours is uglier. Your homework. Yes, make this work with storing the highest use ID in a text file. Second, I want you to figure out how to make the text file hold about 20,000 fake products. I don't care if they're all identical. Don't care. And I want you to figure out as well, in your code, how could you measure the time difference between both approaches? There is a library in JavaScript for measuring the length of time of things. And for any of this assignment, if you're stuck on any part of it, you just reach out to me.
Sure.
But I want you to prove why what we just did is smart. Why you're not really going to care if there's 2 or 3 or 10 records, but you're really going to care if there's like 20,000. Does it make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, good. If you get done with all of that, proving out why it was a smart approach, then I want you to start taking a crack at the ugliest of all possible features for this product. Edit. The reason edit's going to be ugly is because we have this really horrible user interface called the command line. So you're going to have to figure out how to, one, get the ID of the product we want to edit, which is pretty easy. We've solved that already. But 2, immediately write that data to the command line. And 3, without the program ending, all still inside the program, ask for the new revised data to be used because they want to edit. I'm not saying that one's going to be easy. Don't expect you to maybe finish it. And I welcome any questions that you have while you're trying to solve it around implementation. Like, are they going to have to retype every single bit of content? What if they just want to change one thing? Are they allowed to change the ID number? All of these things, any questions you have, I want you to ask while you're trying to solve it. How do you feel about that?
I don't know. No one's working on it.
It's a good one. It's a good one. And again, ask for anything. So Jonas, yours is to get up to the point where you can create the new product by taking in that information from the command line from the user, and that you can, in needing a new ID, don't have to loop through every product and find the highest one, but instead store the highest number inside a text file and use that. And for both of you, don't forget to update the contents of that text file with the new number. Otherwise, it'll be the same ID every single time. So, all right. I think we're going to end off because that's really where I wanted you both to be at a point where there's a significant chunk of work ahead of you for the next week. You guys have any questions before you dive into it?
No.
Okay, good.
It's
And-
great. You know, I believe it's through such challenge that we can improve our ability as programmers.
Yeah.
It's through doing projects, solving coding challenges that it's not only attending lectures or watching tutorials.
Push your way through to figure out a way to solve it. And there's no right or wrong way to do it. If it works the way we asked you, that I asked, that's all. And by the way,
I try, and if just we got stuck, we would ask for help.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, having worked through solving this way, the first time you work with a modern framework that does all this stuff for you under the hood, you're going to be so appreciative of it. But I want you to know what they're having to handle under the hood so you can make better use of those tools. So, all right, that's all I have. Well done to both of you. I'll tell you, Jonas, as well. We need to fill one spot in the 5 Live. Sudesh had a test to do in the morning, and Jason is having electrical problems at his house. So they're just gonna have to catch up as they go. But Ellen had something come up in life that makes it so she's not gonna be able to attend regularly. So we wanna fill one spot. So for both of you, I wanna open it up to your friends first. If you have friends that you feel that they could, in the next couple of weeks, watch previous episodes and get caught up to speed, then I would consider them to be that 5th student, okay? And if not, I've got a bunch of people that applied right at the beginning, and I can go back and see if any of them want to jump in. Cool. Awesome. Have a great evening. Appreciate both of you, and I will see you on Monday.
Have a good night.
Thank you. Have a good time.
Yep. Bye.